There is a very good course on Coursera about gamification. I had taken it first time in 2013. In this course, there was an example of, I think, a Northern European country that tried to gamify car accidents or the avoidance of car accidents by having people that obeyed on the speed limits win lottery tickets. So what happened was that people tried to respect the speed limits so that they will win more lottery tickets. And then they deducted from the insurance companies the cost of the road accidents and gave this money as a prize instead. So what I'm trying to say is of course, current gamification systems are really shitty because they're usually tailored for people who are playing possibly mobile phone games. But everybody plays a game, and maybe it's not the style of gamification that looks good, or as Fab said, identifies with a deeper level of identity. There's a great book from, I think the name of the author was Huizenga, that is called the Human Who Plays, or Homo Ludens, which describes that everybody is playing and everything can be described as a game. So it's probably having different kinds of games in order to help people get onboarded easily.
No, I'm by no means I'm not shitting on the tool. And usually this is a tool about scaling. If you want to scale stuff, you gamify stuff because it's just easier. And yeah, no, I'm totally not like I don't want to get into the discussion whether it's good or bad. I just wanted to flag that there are bad sides of it as well. So let's not get too carried away with it. Yeah, I've been a part of like people who were like, completely crazy about gamification for a while. Yeah.
So when I think of gamification, the first thing that comes to my mind is actually making something fun, making something that people want to engage with. I don't think necessarily just because you scale things, then you compromise the quality. I heard a lot of that in the customer service industry because people just sent back like these templates of replies. And I challenged that and I created a model within Riot where we individualized, but still managed to keep a lot of the things that made scaling possible. So I think that it's just a matter of asking good questions when you're designing this and digging deeper into people that have these comments and worries and concerns about what it could become, that it could be bad. So I think this kind of feedback, especially when you're going to sit down to design, is really interesting to hear so that you have this in your mind when you're designing. And I think that, and I could be wrong, guys, but the few chats I've already sat in, everyone here seems to be really focused on getting something that's going to be perfect. And it's great. We want to do the best we can, but ultimately, especially in trying to set up something that's so challenging, you could take forever to get it as close to perfect as you could. And I think we need to start embracing more the idea of this is good enough to start right now, and we work on it, we get some feedback and reiterate, like pretty much agile mentality. And I think it's really important to start embracing this because the speed that things will start to happen or probably are already happening is going to be quicker and quicker. And we can't get bogged down with perfection. It needs to be good enough, it needs to be safe enough, but we can improve as time goes on. But bringing it back just to a real example, like how would I, like today Matt sent me this video to watch about this conversation. I would have right now have no idea how to get that information. And once I'm watching this video about identity, which is really interesting and there was a lot of good points, I don't know, did somebody open a task and is organizing this information? Is there somebody who's actually doing something with it? Or does it just sit there until at some point there's another conversation? And then the people that weren't there, maybe you even have the same conversation. So it's not clear for me yet the process of how these valuable conversations are transforming into concrete actions that is really starting to shape the community. And how does one go about, because the format of it's there's a I have to keep scrolling to look for an information. It's not very practical, or even how I think about this. So like the idea of having a glossary or having a forum where you can, oh, this section here is about identity. Here the link to a video, here's the notes, here's the people who are working on this. This is somebody posted a little timeline and what they're trying to achieve. And then anybody like no fun token art was like, I want to help. And if she's interested in identity and she can look at the information and she can see who she can speak to and what they're doing, then you can be proactive and start doing stuff. Right now, the most proactive I can think of being is to try and participate as much as possible in these talks and start getting little kind of gems of information so that I can proactively do stuff. Because even though I understand that it's possible to create a task and put it forward, I have no idea where or how or any of this. So from somebody who is just arriving now, I find it difficult to navigate and be able to contribute and get the information I need. Which is why I'm asking, is the information that's easier to? I feel that you guys were already asking a lot of these questions that I'm bringing, and I think this is why there's an excitement for me when I hear you guys talk about this, because I think you guys can see that this is something that's essential, right? It's no great if you have a Ferrari but you don't have good roads to run it. And when I in this analogy, you guys are the Ferrari. You guys, and hopefully soon I'll be saying us. I'm still trying and looking for my space and fitting in and wanting to belong desperately because I like what you guys are doing. But we need to have a good road. And I think that I don't, and this is another barrier, right? Not everybody uses Discord. So when we talk about introducing somebody, introducing the tool is also really important. The idea of the gamification with the purpose of introducing slowly Discord with, okay, this is now I've heard a function for the gamification, this specific gamification. Okay, we want to find a way to introduce our home in a way that's easy to digest. But I don't know the tool well enough to say, is it good enough for these learning processes? And what's the best way to use the tool to see, to follow through on all these exciting ideas that are happening. So, like today, how does one know what are the main things that are being worked on, who's working on, and what's being discussed there, and if I can help there? Is it the task board? Is that essentially where I would go?
Sorry, I think it's just me. Sorry. Actually, Matt, if I may say, I think that this is not super complex. Having gone through the process that Gus is starting now, I feel that it seemed like a really complex, but once my head was around it, it's actually simple. But nobody's found a way to explain this and to use Gus's word to translate this into a language that where you are starting from makes sense. So a lot of people have a ton of experience and they need a certain language and terminology, and people like me and Gus that started from a different place may need completely different. So I think that segmentation process and to understand the streams of knowledge that are necessary is super important. But I honestly don't think that this is that complex.
I'll just jump in there that I think that's completely like where I would go with this, because if you come at it from a user experience perspective, what you would do is have the port of entry and you would know some sort of persona breakdown of the type of people that are coming in, what levels and knowledge they have. And then you need to be able to guide them through that process. So any type of UX system works like this. So it's, I think, Matt, you mentioned it before, where you just wouldn't be thrown in the deep end with about 20 different channels, where you could almost come in and declare your level of knowledge or what you want to do, and then be guided through the process. So segmenting it into different types of knowledge bases, if it's researchers, if it's people like, I'm completely new to crypto, where do I go? I've been in DAOs for a year already, where do I go? So it's almost a product, but without a tech, because we're using Discord.
If I may add, since I am one of the newest members, and when I hopped into the Discord, it was a bit overwhelming, a lot of different channels, a lot of different themes. I really want to thank Xenia because she was very responsive. And while I was just talking, and I had people were responding to me. I started to find out eventually what was going on, and I really preferred this over a very segmented and very specific structured process where there is a list that you can answer some questions and find where you belong. It was a bit of explorative through communication. So maybe this could be another way where we can help people who are onboarding finding out what happens.
I think that's a really good point, and we definitely don't want this to become this kind of cold space where there's no human interaction. I don't necessarily think you'd want to go through a process. It might be more, who do I talk to? I mentioned it earlier. Who do I talk to about different things? And we've been talking about this for a while internally, like who's heading up which domains, and yeah, Ksenia's always around, which is amazing.
Yeah, and all of you are. And I think that this is more about.
Not sure if you lost your push to talk there, but
Yeah, the push to talk has some problems because the screen locks down after a while. So yeah, anyway, even if people don't, this is where micro leaders can emerge. Everybody can become a micro leader. And since everybody can be available in every channel, everybody can interact with someone else and emerge as a tutor, a coach, or a micro leader in a space. So there could be grand leaders on each channel, but there should be micro leaders that have a little bit of idea for various roles and then reference someone to another micro leader who will reference the newcomer to someone else. So just throwing the idea of micro on how this might work.
I think it's really interesting. There's a word that NFTA said, which was Sherpas. I think it's a similar type of concept, right? There's just like a high touch type person that's able to like help guide people and do bits and pieces. And I completely agree with you. I think it's a great idea. Definitely something to think about.
Yeah, it's what we've been doing in the Shibaku Discord. Is that it was just an open invitation to anyone to become a Sherpa. And it can start from which channel do I go to, and the more you get involved in the project, the more your knowledge deepens. And
it works like a charm. Makes modding a lot more easier.
Yeah, the Dutch Ali G there. He's a very good Sherpa, even in this channel already. So well done to you.
I like the Sherpa role. I think it's nice because it's the people that want to help that pop up and say, "Hey, I want to help," and then you can easily say, "Oh, you want to help? Okay."
And I think the idea of an open invitation as well is really good. Just, I think we said this yesterday. Leadership is just like repeated positive behaviour, and you're just there doing the same thing over and again, and that's leadership. I think so. Anyone can be a leader. To Damien's point of micro.
Yeah, just especially for how this Discord could organize and how newcomers can get onboarded. And I wanted to share this because I lived both the Shibaku experience and the finance.vote experience, and I found it very friendly for someone who is a bit confused about what.
No, cool. Thank you for the input. We've just reached the end of the hour here, but if anyone wanted to chime in with anything and to talk a bit about their backgrounds potentially and how they might want to get involved in the projects or any other ideas, don't know if you're free to speak, Nick, if there's anything you wanted to throw in.
Yeah, I'm here. I've been listening intent in the background. Yeah, this is a really nice conversation. I think I'm liking the critical feedback. We need to be. There's one of the kind of governance paradigms that other people in the DAO space are using, particularly Yearn Finance. Actually, I read a book with them called what was it called? A Reimagining Organisation. And they proposed this idea of a teal organization as a kind of design paradigm for DAOs.
Like Peter Thiel?
No, teal as in the color teal.
Ah, okay.
So they say there's like red organizations, which are like very adversarial. Then there's like green organizations, which are very inclusive. And the teal is like the combination of all the colors. They transcend this. And roughly the concept comes down to this kind of like idea of a post-ego organization where everyone has the ability to be able to, we don't get wrapped up in ego. No one gets defensive over the fact that things aren't right on day one. We generate critical spaces where we're saying this isn't working right, or I'm lost, I don't get it. We need to do better on explaining what's going on to people. And I think we've had flavors of that conversation here today. So I think it's starting to emerge as a sort of priority that I can tell you where we've been at up to this point, which is largely it's been down to sort of me to generate the material that explains everything that's going on here. And we've hit a bit of a bottleneck now because I work 70 hours a week doing all sorts of other stuff, and I just don't have as much time to write and generate content as I'd like to. I think this is a great job for us to center this kind of both the design of the whatever gamification we land on, which we're circling around that as well, and also what is the material and content that guides people through what we're doing here. We're right at the bleeding edge of emerging technology. Everything we're doing here has never been done before. So not only is it radically new, it's outside of the frame of reference for basically everyone because it's never happened before. So it's a tough job. And I think the best place, I write from a perspective of someone who's been in academia for 20 years. So I write at a kind of degree level and above sort of framing, which has been a challenge that's how I think, that's how I communicate in that sort of level. If anything, most of the work that I've done over the last decade has been at master's level and PhD level. So I think the community generating that content that guides the community, there's a group of people in here who sort of deeper down the rabbit hole, if you like, and the community is in the best position to bring those people in. So I'm here, we'll be running these courses, we run these videos. I'm always available to explain everything in as detail as you want. I can get my whiteboard out whenever you want. But I think this is a great target for us. We're going to wind down the synchronous activity for a couple of weeks just to give everyone in the core team, myself included, a little bit of a breathing space so we don't burn out. But yeah, I think certainly in the new year, I'd love for us to have community-generated material that guides everyone into this. And I think it's really important. And it feels to me like Gus has got a really good framing on this around these notions of learning design and motivation and belonging. I think that's exactly where I've wanted the direction of that to be. And I think it's just more sensible that that's generated by the community. So I think this is like where this conversation's going. And so I think the next step is like, what is that material? How do we get it generated? How do we support people in doing it? How do we reward people for doing it? How do we A/B test it is it doing the right thing? Is it accessible enough? And I think it will dovetail into this course idea that I'll be working on over Christmas. And I'll present a little bit on next week, which will be, again, kind of high level. Seeing that DAO Leaders course as a kind of master's level course. In order to be a DAO leader, you're going to have to be able to understand blockchain technology on a pretty deep level. You're going to have to understand some organizational theory on pretty deep level. So there's everything under that, if you like, so how curriculum has worked is based on leveling. So master's level is basically called level 7 in the UK, at least. It's pretty much global, but you break down levels of learning into discrete steps. I think what we need is leveled stuff. What's our level 1 introduction? What's your level 2 introduction? Can we construct this rabbit hole for people to go down that starts very accessible and gets deeper and deeper as you go in? So I'm happy to concentrate on where my skill set is, on the deep technical discussions of what we're building here. And then you guys can take that and break it down into much more accessible. And ideally, we build this kind of gamification process of it, where we reward people transitioning down these levels and open up the Discord in a progressive way, so it's not super overwhelming for everyone to start with. But once you're going down the rabbit hole, more and more information opens up to you. So that's where I've interpreted where this conversation's going. Is that roughly in alignment with what you're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. That's the goal, is to, like you say, progressively open things up and make people feel comfortable with each level they move into, so there's not a sense of not just Discord overwhelm, but intellectual overwhelm as well.
Yeah, it's difficult stuff. There's no getting around it. What we're doing here is radically new and involves the most technologically advanced stuff on the planet. Blockchains are weird and strange and new for most people in the world. And
But at the same time, Dr. Nick, I think that the processes of getting people to learn, getting people onboarded, and getting them comfortable are not. And I think
Yes,
that's where
absolutely.
Gus is going to really. I'm just a bit scared hearing everything that we're going to end up putting the horse before the cart. I think that we really need to have a solid plan before we start to create a ton of stuff. And that's where I would look at Gus and many other projects we've done together to set that guideline on that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very happy for the framing around we don't need to blow people's minds with technology to create a space that feels cool and welcome and interesting and fun place to hang out. That's the kind of that we can do without talking about technology at all. There's a lot of people who are entering this space. At some point in the next few years, 1 billion people are going to walk through the door of the crypto space. And they're all going to be lost. And they're going to want to know what's happening and how they can get involved and how they can benefit from it. And I see where we could position ourselves is a welcoming space where you can figure out and make sense of what's going on. So we don't need to batter people over the head with technology straight away. Creating fun social experiences is a better place to start, I think.
And you could even argue that there is an element of a course that's lower than level 7 to get people onboarded, and this becomes a first point of call of learning crypto, blockchain, DAOs, etc.
Yeah, and I think what we can do is get people who up for doing the kind of that stuff, and it becomes their job to make that. So I'm certainly not saying we have just this level 7 content. We definitely need level 1 to 6. I'm saying I won't have the time to be able to create it. So I think and I'm probably not the best person to do it. So I think what we need is that framework. And then we talk about this next week. I'll explain what I mean by this leveling. There's a paradigm for how you can frame, how you design learning experiences at these. So there is actually what is level 4, what is level 3, what is level 2, and the degree of complexity that you attempt to teach in at that time. So I can help people understand how to do it, and then people here can then go and do it, if that makes sense.
Also, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. I have perhaps my own expertise could be because I'm a doctor. I have the training also as a life coach for a health coaching and smoking cessation sessions. So usually taking stuff from high complex academic field and bringing it down to level that people can understand has been something that I had to do for a lot of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did it myself. I worked in science outreach for 2 years in astrophysics, so I would try and teach black holes to kids. So it's a real skill. I worked in a department called the Science Outreach Department, and yeah, it's an art form, and I think we need to get good at it. And I do think the gamification thing is, I've seen it work in the Shibaku Discord. There's people beavering away in there to get to these higher ranks. And they're doing it to gain access to better whitelists and things like that. I think what we can do is have both an incentive but also a learning dynamic to it as well.
I had a lot of fun with the Shibaku Discord myself in chasing after the roles. And no, I also want to say that maybe we could have a much more refined gamification for people who are not so into.
Oh, we've lost you again, mate.
I think I get you.
Maybe different, different kinds of gamification, 3 different games for people with different tastes. That's to approach probably people that are not so much AP as myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the we've got some bots to work. We've got tools to work with. Matt's going to organise a sort of quiz next week, which it'll be about bank.vote, but it'll also be about blockchain technology, and I think we'll get some interesting data out of that, and we can see that's one of the easy tools we can run in the Discord. So yeah, let's see what tools we've got to work with and just start using them. And I think that people have been mentioning this notion of chasing perfection and all that sort of stuff. I completely agree. We've been using the term just cool enough, in our Discord recently, and it is an attitude that we want to pick up on. So yeah, it's more getting. So I considered myself a practitioner rather than a theoretician. So I've worked in theoretical fields. I've worked in experimental fields, but I ended up as a practitioner, which is that you learn by doing. So you don't make a bunch of things that you think theoretically are going to happen. You just go and do them and then see if it works. So a practice-based approach of doing this, I think, is the right way forward. So yeah, we've overrun a little bit, haven't we? I'm going to have to jump off and do a couple of calls. I'm going to try and jump into the community. Is it the community call at 1 o'clock, Matt?
It's at 1 o'clock.
So 40 minutes from now. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, we're juggling, but there's going to be another test mint opportunity today. So we're testing out our minting modules in advance of the mint tomorrow. So we'll be able to. It should involve everyone who's got a Shibaku whitelist. So anyone who's been in that Discord will be in it and be able to see their different allocations and see how it's going to look tomorrow in advance. And then we'll have a bit of time to mop up any issues. We might even throw some of the Shibakus at it if it's working well. So yeah, plenty going on today. I'll be in and out throughout the day, but I'm gonna jump off and do some calls and stuff in advance of that. But yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Super interesting conversation. Look, really enjoying where this is going. I like where we're going with it. Feels like real progress.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Cheers, everyone.
Goodbye.